own emergency. And I think it's going to be a very, very detrimental thing to this county. Never have I seen a board of supervisors in any of these areas tie their hands the way that the several boards have tied their hands to all points. I've never seen that, and I don't understand it. I'm not in favor of it. We are an elected governing body, and we're being dictated to by a private company. Never saw that before.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
I'm always reluctant to discuss broadband at these meetings because I think as soon as a couple of us get in on the discussion, we might run afoul of a called meeting notice that's required. But I did have, and it seems like a very long time ago now, when we met last month, we had just had some major snow, and I did have some feedback from folks. And I have to say I agree that we should have done better with our response to that major snowstorm. I had folks going into the weekend with still no power, and I really think we should have a policy, especially if temperatures are extreme cold or extreme heat. I had folks with small children, I had older folks that had gone without, and Mr. Polster had pointed out, normally outside of 3 days, you're really looking at folks getting fatigued from not having power and water, and they were going into 5-6 days. And it was tough. And I really think we need to I believe we should have a policy that if the weather is extreme, that we open up something in the county for our citizens, no more than 2 days. It was just too long. And then the thing that sort of goes hand in glove there, I had someone offer to buy generators for the county to offer to folks when their power goes out. I don't know if that's feasible or not, to have a donation of that sort, but that is an option. And then the other feedback I received, and I think this is also a very good point, and I asked Mr. Curry about it, if the Flatwood and Amosville refuse centers are closed for a snow day, do they need to open up on a subsequent day? Because, folks' trash is piling up. They need to take stuff off. There might be contractors that are working and need to dump their trucks and get back to work. And I think we should if you all don't think it's a good idea, that's up to you. But I think it's a good idea to offer a relief valve to folks that need to visit the landfill when maybe it's been closed for a day or two due to a weather event.
Thank you. Mr. Carney?
I'll just take a quick note to agree with you, Ms. Smith, about Flatwood. I had a very similar thought. I don't know the mechanics of how the employees who work there is governed, but I did feel privy knowing that it was closed and thinking about all the folks that don't know that it's closed showing up. Yeah. And then I do agree. So I wonder if there is.
Well, that's they're governed by me, and of course, when it's closed, we do our best to get the word out, either on the county website or some of our staff have their own online personalities, and we can likewise place notices that it's open on a closed day. I think probably it's hard to get that news penetrated, but there's not a ton of cost for us. We may pay a little overtime for somebody to help with snow removal and then be there the next day, as long as staff's available. Certainly doable.
Okay.
Social media does help with that one, definitely.
It does.
Mr. Whitson?
I just want to thank all of you again for putting up with my electronic participation today and tomorrow. Really appreciate it, and hopefully I'll be back there in person next month. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It happens to all of us sooner or later. No need to apologize.
The only information that I have is while I was down in Richmond, I did get an opportunity to meet with representative from Buckingham, Albemarle, Nelson, Warren, and I think there was somebody else, can't remember, with regards to CenturyLink and the issues that everybody is having. And we'll get into it further on the agenda, but we are definitely not alone. Albemarle County has been working on this, I think, in advance of pretty much everybody else that was at the table. So they were able to share a letter that they had sent to the SCC and some other information, and had offered, everybody in this group was great. They'd offered to work together in ways if at all possible. And Patrick Money from Rappahannock Regional Commission did an excellent job helping us out, getting the word out to the counties that were going to be at the meetings in Richmond, and is continuing he's got minutes from that meeting if anybody's interested, but the SCC meeting is this month, so we're trying to do as much as possible, as quickly as possible, to make sure all of our counties are heard.
Thank you.
All right. Closed meeting regarding consultation with legal counsel. I guess I need a motion to move into.
You have two motions prepared and on the agenda. The board needs to consider whether you want to have one motion to go in and out, or you want to go in, out, in, out. You need to figure out the path. If you take a vote on a motion, then you'll be in closed meeting, and then you can't take any more votes on other motions.
Madam Chair, I suggest we deal with these separately.
I think it's kind of, well, Mr. Witz, I'm sorry, I believe that would be kind of, it would be kind of unwieldy to do that way. Why don't we just authorize the board to go into closed session and adopt both motions? And that way we can discuss the one, discuss the other thing, you know. We don't have to come back into open session to go back into closed session.
If the board's inclined to do that, I would just ask you to read them as purpose 1 and purpose 2 and subject 1 and subject 2, and just combine them into one. Unless, I don't like the optics of voting on one and then immediately voting on the other one, because technically you have just entered closed meeting.
Right. That was kind of my point.
But we don't have to make it that convoluted. We can just add, like Mr. Curry said, we just add a closed meeting to take care of two items.
I'll be happy to make the motion. The motion to conduct a closed meeting, I move that the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors conduct a closed meeting in accordance with 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. 2.2-3711A, subsection 8. And then the other, to read in the first part of the second motion. I move that the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors conduct a closed meeting in accordance with 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. That's 2.2-3711A1. To go back to the subject of the first, that subject is, the subject of the closed meeting will be consultation with legal counsel regarding volunteer fire and rescue organizations. And The subject matter for the second discussion is assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of a specific employee of the public body.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
Was that the format that you wanted to see, Mr. Curry,
I think,
for a joint
I don't know if I
motion?
want to see it, but I think it's legal.
That you thought that met, kind of checked
Yes.
all the boxes? Okay.
Any discussion? All right, is this, we have to do roll call?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Frazier,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Carney,
Aye.
Mr. Whitson,
Aye.
and I also.
Ms. Dutiel, whose name came up during the most recent appointment, Mr. Bebout, has said that she is still interested if the board is not does not appoint one of your own. My recommendation is, though, because the code encourages you to set staggered terms, and it's my recommendation that if you are going to appoint a citizen, that they have an end term of November 6, 2023, which would fit nicely in with all the other appointments that you already have.
Madam Chair, I'll put forward a motion that we appoint Ms. Kathy Dutiel as citizen to the Social Services Board with a term ending November 6, 2023.
And I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. Nothing in old business. Resolution Benefits Program Specialist Appreciation Month.
I hate to put Gail on the spot, but perhaps you want to speak to this real quickly. Ms. Crooks requested the board's consideration of adopting a resolution recognizing the hard work of benefits program specialists who work in the DSS department. They've had a lot of work to do over COVID, and the state has taken action to recognize them, and she's asking the board to do the same.
Right, certainly, and thank you. I appreciate you receiving this resolution and possibly taking action on it tonight. The State Board of Social Services meets quarterly, and in December, they passed a resolution recognizing February 2022 as Benefit Program Specialist Appreciation Month. They do this annually. February is the normal month for it to occur. You'll be seeing subsequent resolutions that I hope you will also give consideration to that recognize March as Family Services Specialist Month. But the work of the Benefits Program Specialist is so important. They are the linchpin connecting our citizens in the community with those basic safety net programs, to which some of them, that is how they are making their daily living and how they meet. And it's not just about, in our agency, it's not just about sustaining them and getting them through a period of hardship, but it's really helping them to move forward to an area of self-sufficiency. And that's what our benefits programs can do. We're both identifying and assessing needs, making sure the connections happen, and then being a facilitator to strengthen, whether it's an individual, whether it's a family unit, to where they don't need our supports and interventions. And that makes just for a stronger community. So they work really hard. They've had to deal, just to highlight, as through the public health emergency, we all know that there's been a number of changes and a number of temporary orders. But for the benefits program specialists, they've had to deal with, ever since April of 2020 and the first appearance of the formal action in response to the national public health emergency, numerous program or policy changes, some of which are temporary, some of which are have transcended to become permanent, and others which have long-term effects in that when we start to roll them back. For example, anyone who became approved for Medicaid since June of 2019, because Medicaid is an annual, what's called a redetermination of eligibility. Well, in April of 2020, that became suspended, and you cannot take action, any negative action on a Medicaid case. and that meant you couldn't do renewals. So while in some ways it would, on the surface, it would appear to help, because it was meant to help free up staff, two things, to free up staff to deal with the surge in applications, of which there has been, since January 2021, there's been a 13% increase in Rappahannock County's caseload for Medicaid. But it also allowed people who were experiencing either increase in hardship or new exposure to hardship, they would not have to worry about negative action coming out of their Medicaid when things go up and down and up and down. So anyone who came on that program since June 2019 has not had to go through the renewal process. And that's something we're going to have to educate our citizens on. Anyone who is new as a Medicaid worker, and we do have one, has not had to do the renewal process. So it may seem like a small thing, but that's something you have to learn, the process you have to adapt because it's different than the initial one. So the Medicaid, what we're calling the unwinding of that is something that still is a work in progress. It hasn't been, that suspension of renewals has not ended yet, but we anticipate it ending shortly. But that's just an example of the many things that your staff have had to adapt to as they move forward, but still give really great customer service. And I hear them on the phones, and they are just so supportive of the citizens here. And I just appreciate their work. I'm proud to serve with them, and I'm very thankful that you guys are considering this resolution. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone wishing to make a motion?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution that's provided for in the packet for this item.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I can fully support the spirit and the letter of this resolution. At the same time, I just want to say, I hope that just because we're not issuing resolutions for everyone that works for the county or the state or some organization, therein that's involved in a vital process and has had to figure out and negotiate many challenges since COVID started. I just hope no one feels overlooked. We appreciate everyone, whether we adopt a formal resolution or not. And I just hope that resonates with people and that they appreciate that. Because our county employees have really been on the job every day too and had to figure out how to make things work in the most challenging of circumstances.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Mr. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Carney?
Aye.
Mr. Whitson?
Aye.
And I also. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
All right, Board of Equalization pay.
Yes, as you're well aware, the county is working our way through the reassessment process. So once every 6-year process. And part of that is provided for by the Code of Virginia is that the board sets the pay for the Board of Equalization, who just had their training last week. Last cycle, 6 years ago, that was set at $50 per day. Mary Graham reviewed our surrounding communities, and for example, Warren was paying $80 per day for this cycle. Seems very low to me. You've budgeted $7,500 for all expenses for any BOE requirements. I've recommended that you at least do $80 a day, but you're welcome to set anything. But you must set something because the group needs to get to work.
What is a day defined as?
Day of work. I mean, it's
it
not
an
per
8-hour?
hour. It's
No.
not. They have to come together, drive here. And I think the idea is that you're not going to lose money having to go do this community service for your gas for your car, child care, or whatever.
Mr. Grace, is $7,500 that we've allocated for this from a budget perspective, is that likely going to cover our costs at $80 per day per person?
It'll more than cover that. Yes.
Oh, okay, all right.
This is a 3-member body with 1 alternate,
Okay.
and they'll probably meet 5 to 10 times.
Okay. All right, I'll put forward a motion that we set the Board of Equalization member pay at $80 per day work.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. EMS cost recovery.
The Fire and Rescue Association has set forward a request to increase the EMS cost recovery billing rates. This was last done in, I believe, 2018. These rates are pinned in on the top side by Medicaid, but Medicare, there's a recommendation that it be set 50% above that allowable rate. You can see the attached letter from the association setting forth that they would request that these rates be set to $602 for basic life support, $715 for ALS level 1, $1,034 for ALS level 2, and that the current patient mileage charge remained the same at $15. I did note when the board took action on this last time, it was by motion, therefore that form of action can be used again.
I'll place this request in the form of a motion,
So authorizing as per the request.
authorizing the rates as requested rather.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Smith?
I believe these rates are charged to insurance companies and
Yes,
not
and of course,
individual citizens.
It falls back to the compassionate billing process, so everybody will be billed, but if somebody comes forward with a request not to pay, then they don't pay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Purchasing award, Stryker.
Next is the largest purchasing requirement for the Rappahannock County Fire and Rescue Department. The chase vehicles includes the Life Pack monitor as well as the Lucas auto chest compression device. This purchase is rather large at $80,000. It's $80,765.79. The purchase is being conducted through a cooperative agreement that goes through the state of Oklahoma, and that information is attached. Try to answer any questions you might have. This is required to provide ALS care.
I'll put forward a motion that we award the purchase of EMS equipment from Stryker via this cooperative contract in the amount of $80,765.79.
What motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
For paying for this equipment, where is that $80,000 coming from? Is it coming from the budget we crafted for the new department?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, we did apply for a grant. We were not successful with that grant from the state, so we were hoping, that's why we put off some of these purchases. We found out we weren't successful. Amosville was fortunately awarded an ambulance, so at least the community got something. But this will come out of the $150,000 EMS transition capital.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Information reports and correspondence. Do we need a break or is everybody? We're good? Okay. Board committee reports? Building committee?
We haven't met other than the joint meeting that the committee held with the board. So I guess we'll schedule a meeting for February, or we'll just use the same meeting schedule, but we're awaiting any comments or questions from the board on that. We'll continue on.
Thank you. Recreational Facilities Authority.
So we had a meeting and discussed the fence. And in light of trying to complete the fence, as Gary received their proposal, or their ask for next year's budget of $14,000, which would complete phase 3 and would help to go towards a much-needed shed, which they're in desperate need of. Yeah, I think that about wraps it up. They did have a quick discussion about their new bathrooms, which are heated. There was a little bit of vandalism that had happened in there, and folks trying to get to the bottom of that and how that can be, how we can help to not have that happen, which is sort of difficult to do when you have a public restroom. But yeah, that's.
Is it the first case of vandalism?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I don't really
Well,
remember hearing about it.
There's been, in that bathroom, there have been some creative writings on the inside of the play structure in the past.
This one was someone had smashed the glass that was in a picture frame and basically dispensed all the soap. And people keep going in and turning the thermostat all the way up.
Ah.
That was something I brought up early on, that
Mystery.
handle probably has to be taken off, which is what I've had to do in the past life.
Yep. Fodder stack April 23rd, I think.
Yep. And we had a fodder stack meeting, which was good. And they've already had, I think, I could be wrong on the numbers, but I think 50 people sign up, which is great.
Yep.
And so we're looking forward to sort of, as we move towards normalcy, getting back to the fodder stack race that we all know and love, while still maintaining. I think we're gonna maintain a virtual race option, which will be cool.
Yeah.
Just to do anyway for folks that can't come.
Mary Author, who used to be the culinary chef here, did the virtual from Seattle, I think. or
Oh wow, cool.
last year, and she was very happy about it. Okay, let's see, who else we have? Public Safety Committee, we have not met yet, but that meeting is scheduled for this month. I don't remember the date off the top of my head.
I don't think we've nailed it down absolutely.
Okay.
We'll be working to that end.
Okay. Rules Committee, we just formed it.
Haven't met.
If we
Do you
didn't,
have anything you
because we
wanna
didn't
say?
exist.
Planning Commission update, Mr. Whitson.
Sure. January was a busy month for the Planning Commission. We continued our December meeting into January so we could work on the sign ordinance. I want to thank Mr. Goff and Mr. Curry for their initiative on the sign ordinance. Really great participation and input from the members of the Planning Commission during a fairly lengthy work session. Internal comments on the draft sign ordinance are due from Planning Commission members, including me, by close of business tomorrow. And then we will, hopefully at our next regular meeting, try to dig into further detail regarding how to finalize it and hopefully advertise it for public hearing at the Planning Commission for starters. So that's good progress, and that's an ordinance, obviously, that's of great interest to everyone in the community, so hopefully we're almost there. On January 19th, we had our regular meeting, which was also our organizational meeting. I was elected to serve as chair of the Planning Commission again this year, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Mr. Gary Legg was elected to serve as vice chair. We had, and many people have read about this in the newspaper, we had a public hearing, our second one, on a special use permit for a dog training facility on a different parcel than the applicant initially intended to turn into this facility. We did move that on to the Board of Zoning Appeals with a recommendation for approval. So the Board of Zoning Appeals will be hearing that, I guess, this month. We did some additional work on the sort of simple, not eliminated, no net, no anything, golf driving range ordinance amendment. That's not quite ready for a public hearing, but we did make progress on that. The Berkeley group, Mr. Light, Mr. Curry, and I had a kickoff call with the Berkeley group just to get the ball rolling on their diagnostic work on the zoning and subdivision ordinances. So, and Mr. Curry might have the date ready, but we're going to have the Planning Commission as a whole will have a kickoff meeting with Berkeley group representatives so that we're all headed in the same direction. Do you have a date for that, Mr. Curry?
I believe it'll be the 22nd. That hasn't been finalized yet.
Right, so that's really exciting news. I'm very competent people, and we use our initial kickoff call, I would say more than anything, to just emphasize to them over and over again what a unique place Rappahannock County is, so that so they come in with clear expectations of where we're likely headed. That is restrictive zoning and sort of a no development approach to doing business. And so hopefully as time goes on, they will internalize our community's outlook on what we want Rappahannock County to look and feel like. And I think between their expertise and then the wisdom and experience of members of the planning commission, hopefully we'll make good progress on both the zoning and subdivision ordinances. But we're starting with sort of this high-level diagnostic assessment so that we can determine those areas that immediately we need to bring into compliance with state law. We've stumbled upon a few of those areas in a couple of years I've been on the board where our zoning ordinance is tracking behind what the state law says. So we'll tackle those things first and then dive into individual areas. And I think it should be a good project. I'll keep you posted. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Let's see, the Fire Levy Board, I think you guys met, didn't you?
We did. We met, and there was a little bit of discussion of the new spreadsheet, which Mr. Curry expertly fixed. And I think there was we elected Colonel Stenner to the chair again, and yeah, that's about to report there.
Great.
So there was organizational meeting. The next meeting, bill submission review, has been pushed, I believe, to the first week of March to give the fire chiefs a chance. And the rules of procedure for the Fire Levy Board have been set such that they will receive all the bills at least 2 weeks before their meeting to give them enough time to work on it, and they'll be posted on board docs at that time, so everybody can see them 2 weeks before the meeting.
Is the office still receiving the submissions?
Yes.
I think that worked out really well for us anyway. Okay. Anything in the treasurer's report, like cash flow craziness and sales tax?
Yeah, the cash flow graph shows predictable information. The meals and lodging tax graph is probably something the board should look at if you haven't. And these gold bars, yellow, because gold is apropos, is very high. So you can't, this sales tax we know is bolstered by online buying because, for example, Mr. Carney and I were speaking about this the other day. If you go to Culpeper and shop in the Walmart, then your sales tax goes to Culpeper. If you sit at your home and you order your groceries from Walmart for pickup, the sales tax goes to Rappahannock County. That is not the case for meals and lodging tax. This is attributable to businesses located in our community who either provide lodging or provide food and beverage. And it's just a huge increase between the 89,000 we saw last year and 134,000 this year, and that's tracking quarter after quarter.
That's just incredible. It's almost doubled since third quarter of FY 2019.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So,
Great news.
Mr. Curry, Kier Whitson, obviously, the only one online. I mentioned before, and I do hope that we can talk through this once we dive into the heart of our budget cycle and our work sessions, but I really hope we'll all think about whether or not, beyond the equalization of the real property tax rate, we can look seriously at just at least a minor reduction of the property tax rate, given this robust revenue coming from other non-real property sources. I think the number we always throw around is about $150,000 is approximately, in revenue is approximately equivalent to a penny on the real property tax rate, just to keep those figures in mind. And then looking at I'm just looking at our cash balance also in the separate graph. Right now, it looks to me, compared to 6 years ago, we're close to $5 million ahead of our cash balance at that time. And so we're trending in the right direction. Obviously, we're going to have to spend money. We recently had a meeting with the building committee to talk about what we're going to have to do on Courthouse Road and beyond. But I really do think that these sales tax, meals, and lodging tax revenue numbers are such that we need to give serious consideration to cutting our citizens, our taxpayers, a little bit of a break, given the robust performance of these non-real property tax revenue sources. Just want to keep that out there as a placeholder. Thank you.
Revenues are very high overall, and expenditures are behind where one would expect them to be this time of year. At or below, depending on, some of them are much higher because we're paying the quarterly basis, but on average, we're in very good shape.
I do think, I just want to kind of piggyback on Mr. Whitson's comments. I mean, we've seen how volatile sales tax can be based on when COVID started, and also if gasoline prices increase, that can bring a rapid reduction in tourism. So we do need to be somewhat cautious on always counting on those numbers. However, given the most recent guidance we've received on ARPA funding, I am hopeful that there are ways we can direct that funding toward critical needs that might already be budgeted, and be able to free up some money that way and realize a reduction in local taxes on folks. So I certainly agree with the spirit. I'm a little wary that it's maybe not always as predictable as we would hope.
Yeah.
But with that ARPA funding, we do have a little bit of a cushion.
Good points.
Anything else in that report? Capital expenditures, I did have one question. The space needs assessment project?
That project, the board has budgeted essentially what amounts to a bucket of $300,000 from fund balance that was deemed to cover what you needed. The expenditures are largely for planning, design, et cetera.
Okay. So it's more than just the assessment, it goes into the actual building?
Yeah, there are some improvements that are included in that extra expenditure.
Okay. That would make sense. And then I was wondering with the ARPA, when we...
It's just set up as a separate fund, and so we're tracking it separately.
Okay. So we did the allotment for broadband.
Yes.
Is that the timing that's...
You did the allotment. I didn't recognize it here because the rest of the money is not actually going to be here till May. So.
Okay. All right. I think we covered all that other. We're to matters presented by the board.
Matters presented by the board. I just, I wasn't at the last meeting. I was electronic like Mr. Whitson is now. And subsequent to that, the paper came out with a bit of an article about broadband, and it referenced, I guess, the statements that I had made at the last meeting where I was participating electronically. And in the article, Mr. Whitson had stated that he didn't understand why, with all the decades that I've been on the board, that now cell phones or wireless communication is such an emergency. And I wish Mr. Whitson was able to be here today, and I fully appreciate the situation that he has now that he can't be. I don't like talking through the newspaper when we should be discussing things as a board, but never in my time on this board, Mr. Whitson, has the board voted to tie its hands to where it could not work on wireless communication. And I just would hope that there's some way that we could cut out a part in the final agreement with all points that our hands are not tied where we can still work with some sort of wireless communication. That is the emergency. The board created its...
As a business or making money, I mean, he's a pretty smart guy. This is a pretty bad business deal. I have a lot more faith in him than that. So I hope that we go ahead and sort of help make that happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Not seeing any hands in the courtroom. Yep. Oh, have one more.
My name is John Capielli. I'm from the Hampton District. I want to talk about the boundary adjustment. What you read in the newspapers is one thing. The other thing is when I talk to individuals, especially some of the things that come from the board members about what we are going to get as a county from the town, it almost seems like an extortion. The county is going to get a new library. Which is definitely needed, with all the building committee plans looking at the state of the different municipal buildings. This building here that we're standing in, this is a free building. And I can't understand why somebody would say no. The food bank is a huge asset to the county, and not just to the town, but getting a free building for it. These are things that are good for the county. And yet there are people that are saying, well, what else are we going to get out? What else are we going to hold out for? I don't get it, and that's not what I thought that the Board of Supervisors position was supposed to be, was to let's make a deal and how much we can extort from another municipal partner. That's it.
Thank you. All right, I see we have some folks on Zoom. If there's anyone that would like to speak from the Zoom world, please raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Not seeing any hands raised in Zoom. I will close the public comment period, and we can move on to the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, this is Chair Whitson. I'll put forward a motion that we adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. We are about to approve the consent agenda.
Aye.
I have a motion and a second. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And at this time, I think I get to recognize, or we get to recognize, Mr. Sharp. Alex, first of all, the debate has been, how many years truly has it been? Because I've heard 30 and I've heard 40.
Well, no, it's not 40. It was 1990.
So the resolution of appreciation and commendation from the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors to Alexander Sharp the 7th for his service on the Rappahannock County Board of Zoning Appeals. Whereas Alexander Sharp VII served the citizens of Rappahannock County for over 30 years on Rappahannock County Board of Zoning Appeals from October 1990 until September 2021. And whereas Mr. Sharp was dedicated to his responsibilities and provided with intelligence, understanding, and integrity, impartial land use stewardship. And whereas the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors, on behalf of all the citizens of Rappahannock County, wishes to express its profound appreciation for his service to the citizens of Rappahannock County and his devotion to the betterment of the county. Now therefore be it resolved that the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors does hereby express its highest appreciation to Alexander Sharp VII for his significant contribution to the county and to commend him for outstanding service to the citizens of Rappahannock County. And be it further resolved that this resolution be spread across the minutes of the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors for all citizens to reflect upon the service and accomplishments of this dedicated public servant, adopted this 7th day of February 2022. Yes. Oh. I think he's probably got a Zoom, I'm not sure.
Here, I'll take one. It's the beer and I like it. You want,
Yeah,
because this is one I'm gonna say.
it might break.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All that I would say is it's a pleasure, and it didn't seem like very long.
I'm glad that you're having fun.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for all your hard work.
Seemed like very long.
Yeah, thank you.
Did y'all come at the same time?
All right.
Dates, minutes.
Appointments? Yep. Jumping into appointments, Rappahannock County Broadband Authority.
Madam Chair, point of order.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a written resignation from Mr. Parrish?
By email. Yeah, to Ms. Donahue, copy to me.
I was just wondering, because we need to make, take pains to make sure that we do everything officially, but I just wondered if we had anything. I don't know that, I guess that would be considered sufficient, but I thought we'd have something that was signed. Certainly, we could make the appointment today contingent upon getting a written.
I've never requested anything from anybody else signed, but certainly could set the standard.
This appointment is a little bit different than a lot of them we do. We only do authorities in 2 or 3 different other manners. We've got the rec authority, and we've got the WSA that Mr. Sharp is on. So I guess if the board is okay with just an email, then I thought it would probably be something a little bit more substantial. And you can make the appointment contingent upon that it, takes effect immediately after the clerk of the board receives a written resignation.
So are you looking for the actual signature?
That's what I was thinking that we should do, yeah, because the Broadband Authority is probably going to be handling a lot of monies, and I just think that we ought to be a little bit more official, maybe.
Your policy appears that chairs of boards, committees, commissions, as well as appointees themselves shall notify the board through the county administrator of resignation. Doesn't say through what means, and this may be an opportunity to go back and clean up policy 810 just a little bit more as different items come up.
And maybe we should do that to make it in writing,
Yep.
signed and dated.
Any other discussion? Mr. Carney, I know this puts you on the spot. Did you want to participate on Broadband Authority?
Yes, could you just catch me up real quick since I was,
Mr. Frazier was asking if we had received anything in writing from Mr. Parrish. And we said we've received an email, but there's no official signature, and he was questioning whether something should be signed. There's nothing in the bylaws, as far as I understand, that
policy.
require, the policies that requires it, but we could go back and change that
Yeah,
after the
I
fact.
really think we should start doing that, but I mean, this is kind of, we're gonna be dealing with a lot of money, and I just thought it would be more official that, for our record keeping, that we have resignations that would be signed and dated, so that that's the day it takes effect, or whenever that would specify that it takes effect.
but the bylaws do not
Apparently, they don't address
clarify
that.
My concern.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have a phone call situation where someone resigns and now we're gonna make an appointment. We have an email, but there's no signature attached. Maybe we ought to clean that up the next time we have an opportunity.
Yeah, I have to say from my perspective, I'm eager to be, and I would love to be on the Broadband Authority so that my constituents have, representation. And because of your reasons that you want to be clear about how this process is happening, I am also, those are the exact same reasons for which I would love to sit on the Broadband Authority board. Because we do have a lot to go over. Well, I agree.
Madam Chair, this is Kier Whitson. I'll go ahead and put forward a motion to appoint Van Carney and Rappahannock County Broadband Authority to serve through January 23rd, 2023, which is through the remainder of former Broadband Authority member Parrish's term.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. Next is the Rules Committee. I believe we asked to have this on the agenda based on discussion. Mr. Frazier, if I recall correctly, there was concern about whether two members, if they were both board members, could have conversations outside of the Rules Committee.
Those two members, if they're talking about something that the Rules Committee would be taking up, that's why I wasn't at the meeting. But I don't understand why it became such a point of conflict, because if any two members want to talk about something that has not been sent to the Rules Committee, then I don't see how that could be a problem. If two members of the Rules Committee are talking about something that had a piece of some sort of action item that the board has sent them, then there would be your conflict. But just because Mr. Carney and I, if we become the appointees on the next Rules Committee, if we start talking about a resolution that we would like to see the board adopt, we haven't officially started acting on it as the Rules Committee, so I don't see how that would be a problem. But yet, any two members that are on the Rules Committee would be prohibited from talking about something that they're going to be talking about in the committee meeting. So that doesn't change anything. I don't really know what the problem was. Maybe I didn't articulate it, or somebody didn't articulate enough so that I could understand it.
I think that I may have caused that wrinkle in that I don't believe the Rules Committee is only able to discuss items that were referred by the board pursuant to the charter resolution. If that were added, that would certainly make it very clear that if it's not been formally referred to the Rules Committee, then it's not on your plate, and therefore you don't have to worry about those two members. But I think there have been a few things that the Rules Committee heretofore have had on agendas that weren't formally referred by the board, and so then how do you sort what items are germane and which aren't?
Well, once the Rules Committee starts working on something as a committee, then that's where your prohibitions would come into effect, would it not?
Clearly, and
Clearly.
whether it is before when the agenda is posted or when there's a preliminary conversation that this should be on some future agenda, I don't know. It begins to get gray. But I certainly understand what you're saying.
Well, if that appears to be a wrinkle, then we now have two action items that the
Perhaps.
future Rules Committee can work on.
Perhaps.
Which I I think I was looking at it as, do we need a rules committee? Couldn't discussions occur here? Or is it possible, if they couldn't just occur here, could we, when needed, appoint 2 board members to tackle that particular item instead of having a standing committee?
Well, first, I believe, to my knowledge, almost every neighboring governing body of some sort, whether it's a town, cities, or county, has a rules committee, standing rules committee. And like in Culpeper, they have quite a few more committees than we do. I think it gives you an opportunity for 2 members of the body to dig down and to take a look at an item. It's not necessary, but I thought it was worthwhile having. We did quite a bit of good work in the last 3 or 4 years.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, you've been on the Rules Committee. Your thoughts?
I thought I articulated pretty well last meeting that I think the Rules Committee is a useful body, and it can be called or not called on a monthly basis, depending on what's on the agenda for that organization. But I got the feeling that the majority of this board, for whatever reason, didn't want a Rules Committee, and that's fine too.
I would say if you were the 2 serving members of the Rules Committee currently.
I think it's useful for people to go cycle in and cycle off of that committee so they can think through processes and bring different information to that organization. We had some months where we didn't need to meet. We had some months where we had quite a few things to discuss. I think it was more robust last year than it has been in years past for most of the year. But if the majority of the board doesn't want a rules committee, that's fine. But I think continuing to appoint, breakout work groups and then having to figure out how to construct those work groups and notice those meetings and do all of those things where you could just have a standing committee and meet if you need to, which is less work. I think having a standing committee and meeting when you need to is less work. But that's just my opinion, and certainly I don't want to, try to convince anyone of it.
Well, no, I hear you guys saying that it's efficacious, so I think that we should go for it. That'd be my feeling.
Yep.
I'm gonna say that I have a little bit of committee fatigue.
You just got here.
My calendar. Boom, 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 boom. But I'm a trooper.
There's quite a few things. There's the things that you have to do. There's the things that you'd like to do. There's the things that you might can do if you had time that evening.
Mr. Whitson, any thoughts?
I think we just, we don't have, as far as I understand, we don't have anything active that's requiring attention from our standing rules committee currently, so maybe we just pass on this today and revisit it next month. I don't mean to kick the can, but, I don't think there's anything active, and it doesn't sound like, at least in this meeting from the agenda, we're gonna be sending anything to the standing committee. So let's just mull it over, because I think, Ms. Smith's right, it's either appoint 2 people from our board or dissolve it, and before we dissolve it, at least in my case, I'd like to think through what that means.
Well, I guess I'd have to ask the reason, because now this is the second meeting that this has been discussed and maybe passed over to a third one. What happened in the last couple of years that was so unsavory that we wouldn't want to keep it going?
I think I'd look at it differently. Maybe I want to be mentioned that you had a robust couple of years. What can you just remind us what happened? I'm not saying anything unsavory happened. I just
Well, the Rules Committee has worked on the changes to the county code, the county, what was it,
I think we worked through some of the broadband language last year.
we worked through quite a few things, but we worked on the ill-fated and totally unnecessary county code of conduct, even though it came back out of the committee with, I think, no recommendation. The board voted it down, But we worked on that. We tried to make the language somewhat acceptable to Rappahannock County. And, I mean, we worked on like the purchasing regulations, different things like that. Anything like that that would go into the county code, the Rules Committee could look at that for the board and flesh some things out. And when it comes back to the board, maybe we have anticipated, I say we, but whoever's on that committee could, you know, hopefully kind of anticipate some of the questions that may arise and try to get that information together so that when you come into a meeting, you don't wait another month to do something or have to have a special meeting for that. Some of the groundwork has already been laid. But to go back now and say all the things that we did or didn't do, I mean, we did quite a bit of work.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you didn't, and thank you for handling all that. It occurs to me we're a small board in a small county, and I know, Mr. Frazier, you're very on top of the need for us to make decisions as a board, and I think that's the right, I mean, it's the only approach we can adopt. And I just thought that it seems that referrals to the standing committee are infrequent, and to that end, it occurs to me that maybe we just handle these things as they come up as a board. But no, I certainly am not making any judgment about anything unsavory that you did. Again, appreciate your productivity, but it also seems like the sort of thing we can work out at a board level with staff support. And that way everything is sort of consolidated within our local governing body, and the public sees very clearly what's going on. Just an idea. I mean, I don't have a dog in the fight either way, really. I'm just trying to think of efficiency in local government, that's all.
I think it would be more efficient to have a committee than to not have one, but, I mean, the committee meetings, every one that I was at was attended by sometimes the media, members of the public. They're not closed meetings, so it's all transparent, so I don't know, I really don't know where this is coming from.
Yeah, I just told you where it's coming from, at least from my perspective. There's nothing, I have no agenda here. I'm just trying to think through it. So.
But with a committee, if I could, one last thing, with a committee, Ms. Smith pointed out, you have two members that have to make the arrangement. We had a standing meeting date, but with the board, you'd have to have at least 3 or more members to gather together to discuss something. So I just think it streamlines the process. It makes it much more efficient, and it's all open, and it's the rules committee of the board. It's not a committee that's some group that's onto itself.
If the board isn't ready to do this now, would you like me to, I imagine those changes that were discussed earlier to the charter would be very one sentence maybe about matters being referred. I can provide that, kick it back to the board, and then at your next meeting you could perhaps vote to change that charter and make appointments at the same time, and therefore, as was noted, if you have a slate of 12 meetings set on the schedule, if there's a referral, there's a meeting. If there's not a referral, there's no meeting. And you don't have to worry about FOIA implications.
Whatever the board majority wants to do.
Yeah, I just assume we just punt this to next month, and I'd like to think about it a little bit more and look at some of our surrounding localities. That's just me. I'm not speaking for everyone, obviously.
And I think Mr. Carney's message of committee burnout, or I don't know what the term was you used, but I understand what you're saying. And Ms. Smith made a similar comment in January that you didn't have tons of time this year to be on tons of committees. So I'm not hearing anybody jump up saying they want to be a member of the Rules Committee
If I
at
have
this
a
time.
conflict on a time period with a committee, then that's why I would bow out of it, and that's why I asked to be not reappointed to the Parks and Rec Authority, which I have served on twice previously.
Right. I just thought I heard you say your schedule was getting busier. So
These were all scheduled, the meetings of the Rules Committee were all scheduled during the day. I think we had them the
We have
last
a
couple
third
of months.
Thursday.
It was the third Thursday, not about 9 o'clock in the morning. Back when Mr. Listinsky and myself were on there, and I think Mr. Welch, at the inception of the Rules Committee, we held them in the afternoon, like 1 p.m. So they're daytime meetings for the last 4 or 5 years. I don't see how anybody got burnt out by them, but sometimes one or more of us did have a conflict, and we could reschedule.
And they're typically linked with the building committee?
They were,
Back to
just
So they were,
convenience.
just because the two of us were on there at the same time.
If you're gonna clear the morning, you may as well clear it for 3 hours if you're gonna clear it for 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah, usually they were over in about a half hour to an hour. We took a lot more time when we were working on that code of conduct. And that involved both sitting sometimes with Mr. Goff and Mr. Curry. Mr. Curry was, I think, at all the meetings.
Well, and we worked through a lot of the language regarding meetings recently as well.
Yeah, we've done quite a bit of work for the county code and different parts of the regulations.
Would you both be inclined to be on that again?
Only if I got a raise in pay.
Double.
Also double.
Yeah, double.
Well, I hear you both saying that you think, it's effective, and I hear you saying you don't want to kick it to next meeting, and
I don't see the purpose of it. I mean, almost every locality around us that I know of, that I've had any rapport with the individuals that serve on those county commissions or whatever, they have a rules committee.
It's similar, I get the feeling it's similar to the finance committee. If people just don't want it, they just don't want it, and I can't get my head around that still.
I mean, like in Culpeper, at least Culpeper County, and I think the town, they send their resolutions there. Here, resolutions show up on the agenda, and I don't even know where they're coming from.
So if we made a motion that you and Ms. Smith were on the rules committee again, is that what you two would prefer? Because I don't really hear anybody that's jumping up to say they'd like to be on it. It sounds like you've worked well together and made progress on topics. Would you like to do it again, I guess is the question.
I'd be willing to do it again. I mean, I've worked with, I think, three different supervisors now over the years, and perhaps I'm the one that doesn't get much work done, but
I think you've worked with 4.
4.
Because you've worked with, well, Mr. Whitson was on there before I was on there.
Well, maybe,
And
yeah, I
then
forgot, I
Mr.
thought he was an
Lozinski,
alternate, but he may have been.
And then Mr. Welch,
Yeah, maybe I think you might have been the alternate.
I think I was the alternate.
So, yeah, 4 different supervisors, so it doesn't hurt to have some continuity, but it doesn't hurt to have new faces on there either.
I'd be willing to serve for another year.
Okay.
well, and I'd like to make a motion.
Yep.
To appoint Mr. Fraser and Ms. Smith to the Rules Committee.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
There's a pay raise.
Double. Okay.
It means 2 pots of coffee.
Yep.
Divides by 0.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
So do we have 2 pieces of work to work on at the next meeting?
Well, and at the risk of interrupting, the typical appointment includes an alternate. Is there anybody who wants to throw themselves to be the alternate?
I'd be the alternate.
So thank you.
Do you want to make a motion to that?
That is a very good recommendation.
Okay. I'll make a motion that Mr. Carney's our alternate.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay. Board of Building Appeals,
Still have no volunteers for that, and please reach out to your constituents and ask them to join the exciting team.
and you said they meet how often?
Never.
Never. It's a very good.
Only if there's an appeal, has not happened in my 4 years.
Okay. And it's typically a builder and an architect, or architects?
At least one member should be an experienced builder, at least one member should be an RCP, it's a registered, RDP, registered design professional, and at least one member should be an experienced property manager. Note the use of the word should in all of those instances.
I wonder if Mr. Walters would be willing to submit an application.
Mr. Kerr, explain it.
There's a application process, and We'll have you fill it out,
It's online on Board Docs, right?
or just call me. We'll get you the link.
All right, moving along, the appointments to the Ag and Forestal District Committee.
Similar, we need one landowner, and none have come forward. This body meets one time most years.
That's clear.
Yeah.
Some years they don't meet at all. Other years they might meet twice.
Appointment to the Social Services Board. This one we had on January, and it was requested that it get moved to February, I believe.
The board did not complete this appointment during your organizational meeting, asked for it to be pushed off to this meeting. Code of Virginia, the board just adopted your local ordinance change that expanded the body from 3 to 5. In doing that, there was an appointment of Mr. Parrish for his representation as a board member. At the end of his term, there's now a vacancy that could be filled by a board member or a citizen.
Some disability signs, and we're reviewing that. That'll be on our agenda tomorrow, Mr. Curry, to discuss that. And we're still working towards our project on the right turn lane at 639 on Route 211. Expect to be able to get to construction of that this summer, so look forward to that. And a little update on our trout stream restoration projects that we're working with PEC on. Of course, we completed Bolton Branch last summer. We are currently working on Piney River, which is Route 653. And we've run into a design issue. We found out that one of the, we did some boring, or PEC had some borings done, and in that location, one of the borings, we have like 15, 16 feet to get down to bedrock, which is unusual for this area. So that complicated design, so it looks like we probably are not going to be able to go with a culvert or the type of open span structure we wanted because of the cost to do the foundation down to that depth. So we're right now we're still discussing other options, but you know, we're probably not going to see an open span structure there in this April to June timeframe like I have on there. But we'll just I'll bring Mr. Curry further up to date on that tomorrow in our meeting. But one of our options is to countersink large elliptical culverts, which will provide some level of fish passage, but not the ideal level that the grants are looking for. So hopefully, I mean, we're going to have to do something there because the culverts, the existing culverts are not getting any better, and we need to replace those sooner than later.
And to be clear, it's not in your report. This is a cooperative program with PEC.
Correct. Well, PEC came to us. They had some fund. They were pursuing some grants from the National Wildlife Federation and the Fish and Wildlife, Federal Fish and Wildlife Departments, and so they had some grants, and so we were working with them to try to implement some fish passage projects to improve trout stream in not only Rappahannock County, but in other areas around the state where we have trout streams that are interacting with state roads. But more to come on that. Like I said, as far as our maintenance activities, we've been, in January, been focused more on weather activities, but also, grading gravel roads and also, tree and debris removal, and just trying to keep up with the work orders that we get. With that, so that's my report. I did receive a concern from Mr. Curry about wrong-way traffic on Route 211, and I had a preliminary conversation or communication with state police, which I've got some information, and we're going to be pursuing further another meeting to discuss maybe what's the cause and how can we what can be done to mitigate the number of wrong-way calls that we're getting on 211 in Rappahannock County, and more to come on that.
Any questions?
So you're, excuse me, you're researching the root cause of that?
Right. The number of call-outs seem to be a lot higher than in this segment of Route 211 than in other similar segments in Fauquier and Culpeper counties like 17 and 29. And a lot may have to do with the terrain, you know, and the type of visitors that you have to the area. We're going to have a discussion, try to figure out what might be the cause of it, but it is a...
Looking at social media, it looks like the largest number of reported instances are the section of 211 near Amosville, but people that live out as close to Massey's Corner have seen it as well. So it's a pretty good stretch of road that it's happening on.
Right. So, like I said, we got to, between our traffic engineers, law enforcement, try to figure out what's the solution. Don't know, can't tell you right now.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I mentioned to you privately, and I would just say publicly, thank you for the bridge work on Estes Mill Road. It looks wonderful.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
People are
Thank you.
very happy.
Appreciate that.
Go ahead, sorry.
That's okay.
I did have one question. In terms of folks driving the wrong way, do you have an idea of how you guys would go about finding out what the root cause would be?
Well, that's,
In terms of
we
steps.
just kind of started a discussion this recently. And, currently we sign, all our state road intersections are signed, and you see the wrong way or do not enter signs at all of our crossovers. And so we sign for the features that are the median crossovers and where we have state road intersections. We typically do not sign for private entrances just because of the sheer number of them. And right now we don't have any kind of criteria for which ones to sign, which ones not to. So, and I know Mr. Curry has inquired about, possibly, coming up with some kind of way to do that. And so we're going to discuss that and see if that's an option, to provide for signing some way or another for the larger, private entrances that may generate a lot of potential for one-way traffic or wrong-way traffic. But until we, get a better handle on, what the causes are, it's hard to come up with a fix until we know what the causing it.
Sure. Thank you.
It's hard to, if it's intoxicated drivers, it's hard to correct that, but don't know that that's it right now.
Well, and sometimes you can put up as many signs as you want, and if people don't read them, they don't do any
Correct.
good.
Yeah,
That is
sign
a-
fatigue too.
There's
a lot of
so many
signs.
signs already that people just get immune to them.
Right.
Mr. Whitson?
Thank you. Mark, thank you very much this morning. Early you responded to me about concerns from some residents along Mountain Road, and I understand that stretch of road fits into what you described in your opening remarks. It's a gravel road, and we've had freeze and thaw and everything in between. So thanks in advance for getting your team over there as soon as you can. I wonder, a month or so ago, Ms. Donna and Mr. Curry and I had a conversation with some folks at CenturyLink, and one of the action items to which they committed, they being the CenturyLink representatives, to reach out to VDOT to make sure you all are working together to minimize the number of CenturyLink ground-mounted pedestals that get knocked down by VDOT equipment. And for the record, I'm just wondering if you're aware of whether or not CenturyLink has followed through and contacted VDOT in this regard.
Well, thank you for bringing that back up. The last communication I had is that we've had some difficulty in really getting good, solid communication with them. But that's been a couple of weeks ago I had an email from one of my technicians who was trying to communicate with CenturyLink, and was given 2 or 3 names and was having trouble getting responses back from them. So I don't know that we've had really solid communication with them yet on it, but we will continue.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of faith in you all. That's for sure. Quick question. About a year and a half ago, I raised this issue of these beavers that had moved into the Rush River at the junction of Harris Hollow Road and Sunnyside. And the water, about a month or two ago, was all the way up to the road, and one morning was actually on the road because of the dam they created. My understanding from the property owner is that she is working cooperatively with VDOT to improve the overall situation. And I was just curious if you're in the loop on that, and if you, just from a VDOT perspective, could characterize sort of how things are going with that problem area. It seems to have improved a lot, so obviously progress has been made, but I just kind of wanted to hear from VDOT's side, make sure that the property owner and you all are communicating and finding a mutually agreeable solution.
Yes, there has been, I'm aware of some communication regarding that. From what I recall, I may have misunderstood, but that there was some, the property owner did not want us to pursue the normal relocation of beavers that we typically do. We go through the federal wildlife program to have these beavers relocated typically, and there was some hesitancy to go along with that, but I need to double check. I wasn't totally prepared to respond to that particular issue, but that was my recollection of the communication.
Okay. Yeah, I just, I've heard from a fair number of folks who live up and down the road who are just concerned about water getting on the road and then freezing. But again, it seems to have improved, and if the beavers can stay and the road can remain dry, I mean, I think everyone wins. And I just want to make sure if there's anything I can do to help, that you let me know. And I just don't want it to be ignored, because I think if ignored, it would continue to create a road safety problem, which obviously is not in anyone's interest. So thank you.
Sure.
My last question is on ash tree removal. I just wonder, is this still an ongoing sort of spot removal type program? Where does it stand? Are you still spending a lot of money in the county to take down ash trees that are threatening our roadways?
Yeah, we're still spending a lot of money everywhere bringing down ash trees. But it is as we, we maintain a list, and we have a roadside vegetation coordinator in our district office who manages our tree removal process, and we feed all our anything that we can't remove with our area headquarters. We give to that section to take care of, and they get to it as their list. They just kind of assess it and put it on their list and get to it when as they can, as their funds allow.
Great, thank you. Well, you've all done a great job up on Harris Hollow in particular, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for looking into North Pose and the mud pits, I think was the terminology. Appreciate that. And I had a citizen say something to me that I had really not put any thought into, but with Clevenger's Corner coming in eventually, is VDOT looking at the alternative routes to get around Clevenger's 229 and 211 specifically that may cause issues on roads like 647? Is there any?
Well, they had to conduct a traffic study to, as part of their approval process, and it didn't really show, improvements necessary that, on those routes. I mean, it showed some improvements on at 211 and 09. I think they're extending the turn lane there, but really there was some capacity available on 211 and on 229 in the area, so they're sort of using up all the any excess capacity. They've kind of taken it all up. Okay. So I do foresee probably 10 years down the road some issues. It'll take several years for it to build out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. 231, and Ms. Smith, you're probably the best person to answer this. I have heard, thank you for the 231 522T, because I think that's much better, but I had someone speak to me about coming from the Madison end, coming up to Sperryville, that the stop sign is in an area that's hard to see until you're up close to the stop sign. So I don't know if you've heard anything on that either, but just something to.
Yeah, I believe there is a stop ahead sign there and also pavement markings, stop ahead pavement markings on that
I
approach.
think you're correct, and again, I would wonder, like, how many signs are enough signs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In talking through the design on that, VDOT did commit to monitor the placement of the stop sign. They oversized the stop sign as well to try to help. Because of the radius, it is off to the side a bit.
Right.
And my last question is, do you foresee anything from the infrastructure bill that would help us in our area with our roads or any needs we might have, like Chester Gap?
I don't know about Chester Gap because that's a sort of a state, local, but there are a lot of additional funding programs that are going to be new. And there's I think approximately about $5 billion injection into Virginia's overall transportation program on an annual basis over the next several years. So there will be additional funds for, various roadway improvements and projects, infrastructure, bridge projects, things like that. And there's also a lot of, more than I can name right now, of smaller projects and grants that will impact, that will be available for a variety of uses. I can certainly send Gary some information and send y'all, and he can share it with you. But we're just now getting our hands around it, and more info to come on that.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
Thank you, Mark.
All right, next on the agenda is public comment. As we always do, we ask that you, if you would like to speak, raise your hand, come up to the mic, give us your name and the district you're in, and let us know what you're thinking. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sharon Kilpatrick. I'm living in the town of Washington now after many years, 40 plus, in Mr. Carney's district. I'm here to talk about the notion of expanding the town boundary. I find what I'm reading in the paper and other sources does not make real sense to me, because everybody who lives in the town also lives in the county. All the real estate that's in the town is also real estate in the county. It's taxed, the county gets the real estate value for any buildings or the raw land. I think logically the town boundary probably ought to be 211, the 4-lane, and everything contained between the 4-lane and business 211 should be in town, as well as everything facing business 211. And I'm aware of the fact that that may well include a number of properties whose owners don't wish to be in town. I'm just saying I think that's logical. The county doesn't lose anything by expanding the town boundaries. It gains. It's a win-win for town and county. We desperately need more people in town. It keeps shrinking. We desperately need more children in school. We're losing state funding because of our shrinking school population. And any proposal that would create more housing in town, especially for families, is something you should be welcoming. I'm not sure what else I can say, except that I think it's insane to be talking about what's the town going to give up. The town is trying to benefit the county by expanding its borders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yes, ma'am.
Sheila Gressinger, Hampton District. Hi, how are you? First of all, I want to say thank you so much to Sharon for coming and speaking, because Sharon has lived here forever, and she's one of the treasures, I think, of Rappahannock County, and she has wisdom that she shared with you today that's very important. That was one of the things I was going to talk about a little bit. Maureen Harris wrote a commentary in the Rappahannock News on January 27th. And in there, she gave a very factual explanation of times when boundaries were adjusted One of the times it was adjusted in favor of the county. They were able to receive 6 acres from the town. So it was a cooperative working, which is what our comprehensive plan discusses anyway. And as far as who is Maureen Harris, the newspaper just said she lives in Washington, Virginia. But she's also the author of this extensive, hugely researched book called Washington, Virginia, 1735 to 2018, which is absolutely fabulous. I found it online, and I'd love to get her to autograph it, but I haven't bumped into her lately. Then the other thing I wanted to bring up that I wrote about in the newspaper, I think it was this past week, we have some like unfriendly signs around the county. And a long time ago, people had talked about a brochure that the county had that was a welcoming thing. So I went online and I found it. It's called Living with Your Land. And so I downloaded copies for everybody because I think it's really neat. If you haven't had a chance to read it before.
We have those at the county offices.
You have?
Yes.
Oh, good. That's
And they're on the county website.
Are they in the visitor center?
I believe so.
I'll just, might as well, you're walking around, I've been in communication with PEC, who's interested in potentially helping the county update this, and I told them I'd be happy to talk about it.
Yeah, see, that was part of my suggestion, because it's very friendly, it's very welcoming, it does not mention the problems of cell service and everything. And the lady who works at the visitor center, Sandra, is extremely welcoming and knowledgeable, and I've talked with her different times, and she has said that she, gets out a map and she tells people, because of the cell service, sort of a little bit of a problem sometimes, and then she says that they're not used to maps. They're used to their GPS in their car, which is our other problem and everything. But I think if this thing were in the visitor center as it was updated, I just think it would be a welcoming, friendly thing, one more thing that we can have instead of the non-friendly atmosphere that's sometime around here. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, I'm Roy Ellis from Stonewall Hawthorne. We've had a rough start for the new year here. I'm glad to see we've got a full complement of the board to take care of county business. Praise God for Governor Youngkin. Governor Youngkin has put a firewall between Virginia citizens and the Marxist communist cabal trying to reset our country, do a great reset. And some of you may take umbrage with me referring to our leaders as communist or Marxist, but I rely on the old adage that if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, acts like a duck, talks like a duck, he probably got a duck. On assuming governorship, Governor Youngkin quickly overturned the mandates, fired members of the parole board, and is investigating woke school boards in Northern Virginia, making changes such as election integrity laws, school choice, and eradicating wokeism is underway. Some friends and neighbors in Stonewall Hawthorne believe the county should support Governor Youngkin in removing any vestiges of wokeism in our area. Toward that objective, we are asking the Board of Supervisors, and Van being representing our Stonewall Hawthorne, you may want to bird dog this, to contact proper state officials and let them know citizens of this county fully support the restoration of the General Lee Statue Memorial at its original location. Further, we request the Board of Supervisors contact the proper state officials and the LFCC Board of Supervisors, advising that Rappahannock County citizens wants LFCC to retain the original name of the college, LFCC, Lord Fairfax Community College. We also recommend that the Board of Supervisors remove the Rappahannock County appointed LFCC board member that voted for the name change and begin a search for a new representative. These actions will correct a number of wrongs and make a strong statement that the citizens of Rappahannock County will not now nor ever tolerate nor be subjugated by a Marxist ideology. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roy.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the courtroom? Yes, sir.
Hello, Don Locke, Jackson District, host Frazier. Thank you, board. First, I wanted to say to Mr. Whitson, sorry to hear about your folks, and our thoughts are with you, and thank you for participating despite that. I wanted to speak on two things real quickly. The first thing I wanted to say was that I just want to applaud the board for moving ahead with the all points, and I want to hopefully continue moving forward for universal access to broadband throughout the county. I think that it's been very heartening to see the philanthropic efforts to help lower the cost for the county, including the recent Path Foundation grant money towards the cause, and I think that this is just a really great opportunity for the county, and I hope that we continue to being thoughtful moving forward, but not letting it fail, because I think it's something that we really could use in the county. So that's number one. Number two, I also wanted to just take a moment to talk a little bit about the idea of a boundary adjustment in the town of Washington. Just for a little history, when I first moved here and first started working, one of my first projects, two first projects that I was sort of cast into, one was our first farmland preservation easement in the county, in cooperation with the county. The second thing was the wastewater treatment plant here in Little Washington. It was a very contentious issue. My job was to make sure that the town had the best control technology, no matter the cost, so that we had the cleanest water possible, and we achieved that. We were also very concerned in that, and making sure that the town would not later expand out inside farmland, and therefore, help pay for that infrastructure, which was costly, but in the same time adversely affect the countryside. So you would look at that and you'd say that I'd be pretty against the idea of the boundary line adjustment, but just to the contrary, looking at this property, it does not go out into the countryside. It doesn't have really any chance that it's going to expand further. It's landlocked. It's right up against 211. It's literally on the doorstep of the wastewater treatment plant. Looking at, usually as an environmental planner, looking at proposals, usually all the things that the current owner are looking to do are all the things that normally developers run away from, tripping over themselves not to have to do, which is things like affordable housing, community assets, community infrastructure, and these are all the things that we're getting in this property. So from my standpoint, that looks pretty good. So I'm not sure exactly what the hang-ups are. I hope that we continue to sort of move forward to get that done. I think it will be a win for the county if we go ahead and do that. Trying to think if there's anything else that I want to say. 1 second. Also, I've also spent a lot of time looking at the comprehensive plan over the years for conservation easements as well as for other issues. But, it's always been to me sort of a tongue-in-cheek thing that, oh yes, we want to protect everything, but we're going to have growth in the towns. And of course, there's never any proposals in the town. And usually there wasn't, pretty much we were saying like, it's okay if a landowner has an open lot and they want to build, a little tiny cottage there. We're okay with that. But there wasn't really any sort of push to actually make that a reality. I think this is a great opportunity for actually the county to go ahead and do what it said it's going to do all these years in a way that doesn't really adversely affect the town and actually provides services to the county and provides revenue for the county as well. We definitely need affordable housing in the county because the reality is you can't take a $200,000 piece of property, put a house on it, and make it affordable. What we really need is some smaller units, some more denser units, and most of the places we don't really want those. Frankly, a lot of people don't. But it seems like this is a good spot for it. So I think we should capitalize on that. So I hope that you all figure out what we need to do to make that possible. Realizing also that a lot of the things that we would normally as a county be asking the quote-unquote developer to do, he's already offering to do. And frankly, these ideas that Chuck Ockery is a developer, I've worked with Chuck a number of times on conservation projects. He has been an incredible steward in this area, just an incredible person. I mean, putting money for conservation across this region, helping out on countless causes for everything from, the Child Care and Learning Center to our schools to, so the idea that he's doing this as a...
Good afternoon. Calling to order the Board of Supervisors regular meeting for February 7th. We could all stand for Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence. Thank you. Just to let everyone know, we have Supervisor Whitson is participating electronically for a personal reason, and he is in his folks' home, his parents' home in West Bend, Wisconsin. Anything else I'm supposed to cover? Nope. Thank you, Mr. Whitson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just very quickly, for full transparency, I just want to be clear that this is, I believe, the first meeting of my tenure on the board I have not attended in person, and while I regret that, I have been fully engaged in county matters during this time, and in the end, I'm here to take care of my elderly mom and dad who've both been hospitalized for the last 2 weeks, and I thank my colleagues for your understanding in this regard.
I hope everything goes well. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
There's a series of addendum items, isn't it? 2 or 3?
There are a couple of addendum items. I believe there's 2. They are included in the packet, so I don't think any special reference is needed that they are what's published, but they were added after the document was first published on Wednesday. Therefore, any action items associated with those will need to be unanimous. That's P3 and Q4.
Madam Chair, this is Keir Whitson. I will put forward a motion that we adopt the agenda inclusive of the 2 addendum items.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none.
I just really feel with just receiving the information back from the town of Washington today, I don't really know why we take up discussion on that. And if there's any action that we anticipate taking out of it as a result of getting same-day information, I would definitely vote against it. So I'm not sure how much you all want to get into that today.
Okay. It was my goal to make sure everybody had it at the same time.
I think
so.
that's great that we've gotten a response back promptly. I just don't know, receiving the information hours before a meeting just doesn't seem like a good fit to take up that business in the course of that same meeting.
Okay.
Ms. Smith, you're inclined to not vote to adopt the agenda inclusive of that agenda?
Well, and of course, if you all pass it to adopt the agenda that way, that's fine. But if there's any action to be taken, at the end of the day, as it's an addendum item, I will vote against it, which means that no action will occur.
I'll just, it was my recommendation to Ms. Donahue to add it as an item for no other reason other than to get the documents into board docs as a historical marker and allow the public to see the same thing you're saying.
If it's information, I mean, I think that's fine, but I won't be voting on any action items today.
So if I understand correctly, it's okay to stay on the agenda, Mr. Whitson. It's just we just know up front that we won't be voting on anything.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to know if it would be helpful for me to amend my motion in light of this comment, but it sounds like we're okay having it on there at least.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we go into presentations. Dr. Grimsby, the school board report.
Good afternoon from your friends at RCPS. I'll begin my report with an update from our athletic director, Courtney Atkins. The regular season of boys and girls basketball wraps up this week. Girls and boys varsity teams will compete in the Bull Run District Tournament next week, with the regional tournament starting the week of February 21st. At this time, both the boys and girls teams are in a position to advance to the regional tournament. And if you saw that game Friday night, oh my gosh, I just got my voice back. This past weekend, our grapplers competed in the region wrestling tournament, where 3 of our wrestlers will advance to the state tournament on February 19th in Salem. Our 3 regional finishers advancing to states are Gerardo Flores, Jacob Davis, and William Newman. Our Scholastic Bowl finished their season last week, finishing 4th overall in the district and 3rd in the region, only 1 spot short of advancing to states. Our performing arts facilitator, Mr. Henry Mason, has casted the spring musical Anastasia, which will debut this spring. More information about the performance dates will be forthcoming, and I hope that you will come out to support our new performing arts facilitator and those students. As for our COVID-19 update, our CPS is holding strong with very few cases on our dashboard. As of this weekend, there was only 1 number showing, which is great. Hopefully it can stay that way. Snow days truly played a role in limiting post-holiday spread, and for now, mitigations in place are working very well at keeping COVID out of the school and limiting transmission when it does occasionally appear. Currently, the school board's health and safety policy has remained the same, other than allowing parents who wish to elect for their children not to be subject to the masking policy to do so with written consent. At this time, about 26% of the elementary students have been exempted and nearly 1/3 at the high school. During my monthly school well check update at tomorrow night's meeting, I will give an overview of possible implications coming from the Arlington ruling, but at this time there are no changes to masking at the schools. If current trends continue, our NCIS team is hopeful that we will begin to delayer mitigation when we return from our first spring break. So exciting about that. As you know, last week our school safety protocols were tested when a person claiming to be a high school student at RCHS wrote in a chat to the National Suicide Hotline that they had access to a firearm and were thinking about harming themselves. I was truly very proud of the quick response of our sheriff's office in their activation of emergency protocols and the collaboration with our administration in order to investigate the case while working hard to maintain the operations of the school day. This week, we continue our work to continue to collaborate with our students and train them for emergency protocols, as well as help them understand why things happened the way they did last week. We also want to reiterate the resources that are available to them, whether they wish to seek help for themselves or for a friend, or if they wish to report instances of bullying. Working together in this way allows for a much safer school climate, as one of our former students who was at Bridgewater College during last week's incident reported to us saying, "My training at RCHS truly helped me know what to do in this situation and how to stay safe." Our Wellness Center has been increasingly important, providing outpatient mental health services for referred students through Health Connect America. Health Connect America allows for students to receive much-needed services at school, removing the barrier of transportation to other counties and expensive providers. Also, we have reopened the Valley Health Fit Kids Clinic at RCES, hiring a grant-funded full-time school nurse/telepresenter to be the liaison between the school and the health provider. Her name is Heather Campbell, and she started with us full-time this last week. Services include sick visits and a point of care testing for things like strep, flu, and even COVID, allowing for parents who wish to use the service to pick their child up with a diagnosis and a prescription right on site. So parents who have used the center have been thrilled with the design and convenience it provides. Finally, RCPS will be releasing students early this Thursday as we have parent-teacher conferences from 2 to 4 p.m. and 5 to 7. Parents should have heard from their child's teacher about conference appointments, and slots are also available for virtual conferencing as well. Friday, RCPS will be closed for students for a scheduled teacher professional development and work day. As always, thank you so much for your continued support and advocacy. We look forward to hosting you tomorrow night at RCES at 6:30 p.m. for the joint budget meeting. Do you have any questions for me?
I did hear on the radio earlier today that the Supreme Court of the state did take some action, so I'm sure we'll be hearing about how that intersects with the school's policies.
Yes, they did. They issued it. It was dismissed, yes, against the Chesapeake parents. And then the Arlington case has some interesting interplay between EO2, Executive Order 2, and the Senate Bill 1303, which we'll get into a lot tomorrow. During my well check update, we tend to talk about any policy decisions at the state and any implications.
Can I ask about the incident last week at the school, the high school? I know some parents were concerned because of the inability to talk to their children over Wi-Fi. Was the Wi-Fi taken down as a precautionary measure, or was it just overloaded in light of what was going on, or do you know what was going on there?
Yeah, so the Wi-Fi network was never shut down at all, and whether or not it was overloaded is unclear. I don't think so, as it does have a lot of traffic at all times, but it was not shut down by us.
Well, and I was wondering if it was shut down as an emergency measure, that you worry if something's happening that they're using that to communicate with each other.
Yeah, and there may be circumstances in crisis management where that is necessary. In this case, it wasn't deemed necessary. We did not do that.
Okay. That sounds great. And I keep up with the COVID dashboards, and they are very encouraging, and I do hope that all that can unwind one day very soon.
When is spring break?
Well, we sort of have two modified long weekend spring breaks in the calendar, and I believe the first one is that weekend of the 2nd and 4th of March, and then another one early April, but I can't remember the dates offhand, I'm sorry. But it is on our school calendar on our website.
And the only other thing I had is the Valley Health Program. Is that in any other schools?
Not like this. Any other schools that have it, we did see one similar model in Shenandoah County, but usually they're run by a free clinic who kind of is housed there. We're the first ones that have done this kind of agreement with an actual provider, a health provider. So it's innovative in that way, but it also comes with a lot of different challenges and paperwork and licensing and all sorts of things. So we're learning as we go, but it should be a successful model.
That's incredible. Thank you. Is the Valley Health Clinic open to staff as well, or is it just students?
At this point, it's only students. There is in our grant an objective to try to get to that level to expand to staff, and then maybe even eventually expand further for members of the community after school hours or on special nights or evenings, weekends or something, but step by step.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Grimsley, it's Keir Whitson. Looking forward to tomorrow evening, is there one highlight that comes to mind as you're thinking about the upcoming fiscal year budget from a school perspective that you'd like to mention now?
Well, it's an interesting time. Building a budget in terms of still going through the pandemic. We still do have quite a bit of funding coming through for the pandemic relief. So that I feel good about for fiscal year 23. We also, in the current iteration of the governor's budget, do have additional revenue coming in for different ways. So the outlook for FY23 looks pretty decent at this point. But that is all subject to change as each of the House and Senate committees get a hold of it and prepare their amendments. So we'll see.
Great. All right. We look forward to talking with you all and the school board members.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Shenandoah National Park update. Deputy Superintendent Sovia.
That's right.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Patrick Kenny, the superintendent, regrets that he can't be here in person. He was taken away from family emergencies, so he wants to send his apologies. He wanted me to come here and talk about old rag, and so I do have handouts. I also have a copy of our old rag mountain visitor use study. That's a pretty big document. All this information can be found on our webpage. So, kind of want to start off with the reason behind this. Over the last several years, I think we can all agree that the visitor use in Shenandoah National Park, especially the Old Rag Mountain area, has increased. But it's increased to a point where it's adversely affecting our resources, how we manage our outcroppings, and just the overall visitor experience. In 2019, we did a visitor use management study, which I provided a copy to. In that study, it shows that 12% of the people that hiked Old Rag turned around because of the conditions, because of the long lines of the conditions, just the congestion on the trail itself. We also received reports of extensive waiting periods at some of the pinch points along the trail, ranging from 10 minutes to 2 hours. So using that visitor use study and the input we've gotten from visitors as a foundation, we are moving forward with a pilot to test a strategy for managing the area to ensure resources are preserved and we can provide a better quality of visitor experience on the mountain. To help us gain stakeholder perspective, the park opened up a civic engagement in August and September, in which we received over 400 correspondents. The majority, over 60% of those received, were mostly supportive of the idea of us putting some management measures in place. So this year, the basic of the system is what we'll be using recreation.gov to issue tickets for those to hike Old Rag. 800 tickets will be issued per day. 400 will be released 30 days in advance. And another 400 will be released 5 days in advance. The cost for the ticket is $1 per ticket with a limit of 4 tickets per group. And that $1 covers the cost of the recreation.gov fee. None of that money will come to the park. This study or this pilot will last from March 1st through November 30th of this year. During that period, the park will monitor visitor use and its impacts in the Old Rag Mountain area, as well as assessing Rapp County concerns about displacement to other trailheads, Little Devils, White Oak, etc. That is a very valid concern, and we appreciate the county raising this during the comment period. For those who arrive to Old Rag without a ticket, park staff will be directing those visitors to alternative destinations or trailheads along Skyline Drive. Since this is a pilot, we'll be looking for feedback and we'll adjust as needed. We will also engage in civic engagement again prior or following this pilot period. We also encourage everyone to go to our website and they can find all that information there. So please reach out if you hear any concerns. The park, we cannot, address issues if we don't know about them. So. Is there any questions?
And I did link the Old Rag ticketing process webpage in board docs if folks listening are trying to figure out how to get there. There's a link directly to it.
So the large handout that you gave us, do you have a link to that as well?
There's a link in our website for that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'll go. Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. This is Kieran Whitson. Just a few questions. During the early part of the pandemic, which seems like eons ago, Madison County shut down access through through the area leading to the Old Reg trailhead and parking area, and it seemed to have the immediate effect of shifting a lot of traffic and a lot of hikers into more popular trailheads in Rappahannock County, including one trailhead in the Smiths District, which is Little Devil Stairs. And so I just, I think on behalf of all of us, ask that you all, while you're focused on sort of this Madison County Old Reg pilot potential solution, please watch carefully for any adverse effect that pilot will have on, or likely will have on us in our county. Because I think that human behavior is such that it'll take a while for people to even realize that there is this permitting process, and they'll be showing up in droves, and then we'll be turned away, and then we'll be looking for another place to go, and I have a feeling they're gonna end up on Little Devil Stairs for starters. So I just ask that you all keep a close eye on that and be ready to make some modifications so that we're not on the losing end of that. That's just a comment. My one question is, there was an unfortunate and relatively unusual incident that I haven't seen before in the Shenandoah National Park, that I've seen out west, where some cars were broken into at the Little Devil Stairs trailhead, and items were taken. I wonder if those individuals have been caught, or if you made any progress in that investigation.
I appreciate your comments, first of all. We will be assessing the areas surrounding the Old Reg in Rappahannock County to make sure that there's no adverse effects from this ticketing system on other boundary trailheads. We will make adjustments as we can and as they arise. As far as the break-ins, I was first made aware of this on last week, and I have yet to follow up with my chief ranger to get an update on that. I do know they were working with the sheriff's department on those break-ins, and I will actually touch base with her today or tomorrow and provide you an update.
Okay, great.
I was going to say, I can tell you in my conversation with Superintendent Kenny, he did say that the Parks law enforcement was enjoying good cooperation with the sheriff's office, and he was very complimentary of the joint efforts.
Right.
And I would just echo Mr. Whitson's comments about the trailheads throughout Piedmont District. We have 4 Hull School, which is a challenging road, and there's not a lot of places to get out of there, and it's not in the best condition. There's not many options for parking, and things can go bad back there very quickly. Little Devil Staircase, of course, parking can be bad back there on a good day because of the high numbers of people that go back there to hike, which is great. It's a beautiful area. But for people that live back there, it could be, borderline nuisance for them. And some of them have a lot of difficulty getting home during a regular season. So if we're pushing more people and stressing that area, I really am very fearful that that will be an issue. Stillhouse, which, that's more remote, but I was back there during the fall. And again, wall-to-wall people on a beautiful day. And again, a very tight area, hard to navigate, and not a lot of options for parking. And of course, Buck Hollow on the side of 211, lots of parking, but on the side of a relatively well-traveled highway, and also, a dangerous concern there. So anything you can do just to keep an eye on those areas and help us through would be very much appreciated as we make this transition to ticketing.
Yeah, and we've also increased staffing at the Old Reg Trailhead this summer, so we will be actively managing that and really encouraging people to go enter the park through Skyline Drive.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so very much. I mean, we're glad for the tourism, but when people can't get home or when emergency vehicles can't get through, it can really deteriorate quickly.
We understand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I do applaud the move to a ticketing system. I think that it will maybe help to ameliorate some of these issues on top of Old Rag. I do agree with my colleagues, Ms. Smith and Mr. Whitson, that I do fear about the overflow and the mitigation that's going to have to happen. And so I have 2 questions. The first is, will there be walk-up tickets of any kind? And if not, will there be signage, or could there possibly be signage somewhere basically saying that Old Rag is closed?
We are in the process of trying to contract out the purchase of variable message boards. We will have a constant communication on our social media page. Obviously, if you get on the ticketing system and there's no tickets left, then people know that it's not available to them. At this time, we don't have the capacity or the technology available to us in those locations to provide people to walk up and get a ticket, because you have to do that online and through recreation.gov. We are trying to figure that out at this time, but right now we don't have that option.
Because my concern with that would be that people would just say, "Oh, we'll just go,"
Yeah.
and then you'd have all these people being like, "Oh, we'll just go."
Right.
And the folks that are, we see the traffic. I think I counted 100 cars down Kaiser Run Road at Little Devil Stairs last year.
Right.
Which is, for any of you who don't know Kaiser Run Road, it's a lot of cars.
Right.
So, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Do want to note, and Mr. Nesbitt may note this when he talks, but we are working with VDOT to post no parking signs on one side of the end of Kaiser Run Road where some people thought that it might be a good idea to park on both sides, leaving very little room. So that was brought to our attention by the residents, and that is, I'm not sure if it's done or in process, but we're working on it. It's done. There you go.
I know there was a protected area on Old Rag that was basically marked off so that people couldn't kill the vegetation or to give the vegetation a chance to grow back. Was that a successful project? Did you see?
We are seeing some success with that, but obviously the use, our ability to monitor and that use, we're still seeing some concerns, which is why we're doing this ticketing system to help us manage that. And we will also be able to monitor that on top of the mountain a little bit better through this pilot program to see if it's actually helping out. Us being able to manage the visitation is helping manage those protected resources as well.
I volunteered with the outcropping project, did Mary's Rock and a couple other sites, and I'm wondering if that's going to be brought back so that maybe you can get some volunteers. I know Old Rag Master Naturalists are very, helpful when it comes to protecting our the beauty. So I don't know what you're doing on a volunteers side of things, and if there's a way to get people involved.
We are trying to increase our volunteer program. I'd have to speak with my chief of natural resources to be able to better answer that at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't speak for people, obviously, but I know we had a very active group of citizens from Rappahannock County that were helping volunteering with the park, so
right.
Just a thought to bring that back. I'm wondering if on our website or the Explore Rappahannock website, if we've got this information about Old Rag being closed and tickets or, yep.
Right.
Anything we can do to help hit people before they get out here,
Right.
and then you have a bunch of unhappy people would be benefit. I think that's all I had. Mr. Frazier?
No, I don't have any questions. I think you've addressed everything that President Board member said.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zebia.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you
Best to
too.
Superintendent Kenny and his family. Next, we have the quarterly VDOT update. Mr. Nesbitt.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and rest of the board members. Appreciate y'all having me here today. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
We've had a pretty good January with snow and freezing conditions, and our guys have been very busy, getting ready for snow, pushing snow, cleaning up from snow, and so we're going to probably have a lot of gravel road issues, and especially after a couple of warm days last week and some rain. So just be patient with us as we try to get to them. Can't get to them all at one time, but we will get to them. Also, probably going to see some potholes come up, and so we'll be working on potholes as well, but just want to kind of say that off to start. Submitted my monthly report to you, and kind of use that as a guide, and of course anything that I don't cover. Any questions, be happy to answer. As far as rural rustic projects, our next one coming up will be on Kaiser Run Road. We'll be working on that this summer, and there's 2 sections, but we're working on one section, and then we'll catch the other section next summer. And then, of course, here shortly, we'll be coordinating with Mr. Curry on updating the 6-year plan this spring. So we'll be having discussions on, adding any roads to the program, and we'll be having those conversations. So keep that in mind. Our paving schedule has not started yet for this year. Obviously, it's winter time, but that'll be starting up in April, May timeframe. I will be sending you some information here in the next week or two on what we have planned for this year, and then be willing to, open to discuss any of those projects or any roads that you feel like ought to be considered for future paving schedules. Touch on traffic engineering studies. We just completed, it was brought up a few minutes ago, the parking issues at Kaiser Run Road. We did get the no parking signs up at the end of the road. I haven't looked at them myself, but I understand they have been installed. And then also we received a request from a citizen about installing some disability